Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
Matterhorn Matt presents Matterhorn Mondays.
Why, hello there! Funny of you guys to show up to episode 93 of Matterhorn Mondays, where your host's name is Matterhorn Matt.
And your co-host's name is Alex the Historian.
Wow, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to see all you guys here. Glad you came, though. Yeah, it's gonna be a great episode today. It's not 9 in the morning. I feel awake, except I feel like I could also fall asleep at really any moment. So, yeah, welcome. Did you guys know that Matterhorn Mondays is actually the very first podcast ever published to YouTube? Fun Matterhorn Mondays fun fact, if you will. But anyways, we hope you all had a great week. It feels like it's been a while since we've talked to you guys, because it's been over 7 days. It's been 8 days. But anyways, yeah, we hope you all had a great week, had a great day, and I guess we'll just get right into it. This episode is sponsored by all of my patrons over on patreon.com/MatterhornMatt, and yeah, if you guys are interested. Oh, I did not wearing the shirt. I forgot. It's on the floor back there. But this is, kind of Hawaiian, kind of. I mean, it doesn't give off the same vibe. I mean, I'm wearing a lei, though. I feel like that should sort of make up for it. Maybe. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, we also have a Discord server. Link is in the description. All the links are in the description. I feel like you guys know that at this point. Link to my Twitter, Instagram, also link to Alex's YouTube channel is in the description below. Also link to a birthday link if you guys want to be wished a happy birthday live on the show. Head on over to the Google Doc that we have in the description and to submit your birthday. Just the date, day, month, name. You don't have to put your social security number in there if you don't want to. Just your birthday and your name. And yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this week's announcements. I don't know what to do. It's been a long time since we've done a podcast. I guess we'll just do head right into Matt Snaps. I should probably at some point get new flavors. I've been drinking the same flavor of Snapple for like 20 episodes in a row, I feel like. But yeah, it's mango still, so we'll go ahead and pop this bad puppy open. There we go, that's much better. And this is real fact number 6. We're getting closer and closer to the number 1 real fact. A honeybee can fly at 15 miles per hour. That's faster than I can crawl, you guys. Impressive for bees. But anyways, let's go ahead and get right into this week's drum roll. I should get a drum roll sound effect. I'll just use the laugh track for now. We'll get right into this week's drum roll. News from the Peak.
We now present to you News from the Peak.
Oh wow, can you guys hear me pouring that? That sounds interesting. But anyways, for our first bit of News from the Peak for all you Frozen fans out there, brand new teaser trailer, or I guess full trailer actually, for the smash hit rom-com movie Frozen 2 has been released. This was released this past week. Link will be in the description down below. Doesn't really give any new info. It's almost identical to the last trailer that was released, so they're withholding a lot of information from us for some reason. I have no idea why. For our second bit of News from the Peak, this is very sad news, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not 100% sure on how to pronounce this guy's last name. I think it's Michelson.
Yeah.
If I'm okay, I was worried I was going to get it wrong. But anyways, Disney Parks poster artist Jim Michelson has sadly passed away. And if you guys don't know who Jim is, I'm just going to call him Jim, because I don't want to mispronounce his name by accident. I'm going to switch to some images here. You may not know who he is, but you sure have heck seen his artwork around the parks. This is one of his art pieces of artwork. Disneyland Railroad poster. Really great stuff. He's one of my.
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites as well. Here's another one for the Country Bear Jamboree. You guys can look up his artwork online. He does really amazing stuff. Like I said, you may not know the name, but you've seen the posters around the park. So very iconic. This is sort of like the main style that a lot of us think of when you think of Disney parks posters, attraction posters. Yeah, so sadly he lost his battle to cancer. So, guys, can we get a big F in the chat for Disney Parks poster artist Jim Michelson? So yeah, big F. Oh, Alex. Oh yeah, Alex will go ahead and lead up in chat. Yeah, and for our last, but certainly not least bit of news from the peak, Disneyland Forever, you guys, has returned. There's not much else to that. Disneyland Forever returns. According to what I've seen online, it's the exact same as it originally debuted in 2016, with all the fireworks and everything, all the big fireworks. I'm 99% sure nothing's changed. So yeah, I guess that's kind of interesting for those of you that thought, or I guess for those of us that thought that fireworks shows were going away at Disneyland. I mean, they still could in the future, but anyways, that's gonna do it for this week's drumroll news from the peak. And yeah, I think we don't have a video to play for Alex in the parks, but Alex did send me some very interesting images straight from Disneyland, you guys. So I'll go ahead and switch to that here. But brand new
I sent you a
churro.
link to a video.
Oh yeah, we do have a video actually, but that's going to be our next topic.
Later.
But for this, yeah.
Okay.
I can't 100% picture where this is, but new churro cart. Alex said this is now permanent. It looks like it's in Critter Country.
It is in Critter Country. That's the Hungry Bear restaurant right behind it.
Again, I can't picture where this is in the park. I'm thinking it's on the pathway that leads to Galaxy's Edge. Am I right?
No, it's not.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop.
The entrance to Hungry Bear restaurant is literally like 5 feet to the right.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, yeah. I get it now. I can picture where it is. Okay, but yeah, it's kind of called the Snackin' Place, you guys, and I got a kick out of that. It's pretty funny, and I can't really see what it says right here next to the bird. Does it say parish? What does that say? Peckish, not parish. That'd be kind of weird if it said like parish. You'll perish if you eat this. If you eat from here. But anyways, yeah, here's a picture of the backside. Looks real nice. Kind of reminds me of Toy Story Land for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, it's like pretty cute looking. I mean, I'm all for the name, the Snackin' Place. That's an amazing name. Churros and, does that say lemonade, I think? Yeah. Anyways, so that's that. And I think, oh yeah, we do have another bit of quote-unquote Alex in the Parks. Alex didn't send me the pictures to this, but the images to this comes from Disneyland News today. The brand new pedestrian bridge has been installed for the Pixar Pals Parking Garage. That's kind of almost like a tongue twister. Pixar Pals Parking. It's not really, but yeah, so as you can see in these images, the brand new pedestrian bridge that goes over Magic Way? No. It goes over
Magic.
Oh, let's go. I got it right. All right, anyways. Yeah, this has been installed, so I believe this goes from the parking structure all the way to downtown Disney. I could be wrong where the ESPN zone used to be. I don't know.
Yes, it goes to downtown Disney. Jeez, are you a Disney fan? Like, you create Historyland videos. I mean, like, you'd think that you'd know some Disneyland resort, like, geography or something.
I haven't really been keeping much track on this for some reason. I didn't even think I knew that they were going to have a pedestrian bridge until like a month or so ago. Excuse me, but yeah, anyways, here it is. There weren't any alternate angles from looking at it from downtown Disney that I could find, at least that were up to date. But anyways, so that's that. For all you fans of walking, it's almost like you're flying over the cars if you like close your eyes and you walk over the bridge. But anyways, that's gonna do it for that.
You could fly over the cars if you walk off the bridge.
Yeah, you could do that too. But anyways, we're gonna get into our main topics now, you guys. And this week's main topics are a doozy. They're gonna be polar opposites from one another. We'll just get right into it. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see, or if you're just on Twitter in general and follow a bunch of Disney people on there, this was a big deal yesterday. Or at least I made it into a big deal. I don't know if a lot of people cared about it as much as I did, but you guys set off your sirens, call the cops, call the police. There's been a murder, you guys, and the Main Street Cinema has been found dead in Disneyland, and it's been replaced by a shop. They turned the Main Street Cinema into a store, you guys. And as you can see, I'm scrolling through the pictures here, and Alex does have a video to show us. We'll get to that in a few seconds here. What was once a quiet, peaceful, air-conditioned nook, as you may call it, in Main Street, has now been turned into a gratuitous. It's almost like the Main Street Cinema got like plastic surgery. That's really what this is, to like get people to like it more. Main Street Cinema went to the doctor and she said, "Gosh, people aren't coming in to watch my movies, doc. What can I do to make myself more appealing to everybody?" And the doctor says, "I can give you some shots of Botox that will in turn put merchandise inside of the cinema." That was a kind of weird analogy, but we're just gonna go ahead and cut to the video that Alex has prepared for us. So we shall get that underway right now, after this transition happens. All right, here we go.
Matterhorn Matt sent me a very surprising tweet, and it had to do with the Main Street Cinema being turned into a merchandise shop. So I'm going in to see what in the world's going on. Excuse me. Oh boy.
Okay, so it's pretty. I don't even know. I don't have any words. I can't sum up words to explain how I feel about this. So well, let's start with Alex this time. Alex, what are your thoughts on Bald Chapek defiling our beloved building in Main Street for money?
You know, I just feel like, isn't there enough square footage dedicated to selling this exact same merchandise?
Yeah,
you know, like,
yeah.
There is tons of room on Main Street. As a matter of fact, they took away our penny arcade in order to put more candy shop merchandise. You know, it's just like it's really sad because it's not necessary. And it's like there's tons of shops in Disneyland that all sell the same thing. So it's like if you really thought that this merchandise was different from the rest, then why not just dedicate one of the other shops, which is a clone of the others for this merchandise. Like it just doesn't. Like I get that the way that these executives work is they want to see every square foot of Disneyland utilized to its maximum, but this is one of those things where it's like Disneyland has these nooks and crannies that allow us to, walk into them and just enjoy the experience of Disneyland from a very quiet or serene angle. And this is one of those places that I liked to go once in a while. I'll admit I didn't go there every time I went to Disneyland, but that's the whole point is, if everybody went there every time they visited Disneyland, it would be a really like crowded room. Anyway, to sum up, what I want to say is it's not necessary. It's not really fair because it was a very nice place just to hang out and relax, especially in the heat, and to enjoy some classic cartoons that most people don't bother to buy on Blu-ray. And also, finally, there was more footage to the end of this. I mean, it wasn't inside the cinema, so that's why I didn't include it. But I did speak to a cast member who worked there, and I asked if this thing is permanent. Thankfully, they said, no, it's not permanent. They're kind of testing the waters. If people actually purchase stuff from here and it earns more money per hour than it consumes, then they'll consider keeping it. And by consider, I'm pretty sure that means they will. But yeah, so hopefully this place doesn't get very much business. Hopefully they decide like, okay, you know what? This isn't the right way to utilize this space. It's just, it's sad. It's really, really sad.
Yeah, I feel like we should all go to Disneyland with like picket fences and like picket outside the Main Street Cinema to boycott people going in. Yeah, it's not even that interesting of merchandise, in my opinion. I mean, from what I can see from these pictures, it's just like gross Mickey Mouse shirts, like, and hats. I mean, they already have enough. I mean, Alex said this. They already have enough Mickey Mouse merchandise around the park, and it just doesn't really make any sense. I mean, I don't know. I'm just very against it. I feel like this is just the grossest thing I've ever seen.
It is, and it's all the other thing too is that they installed some track lighting in there in order to shine light on the merchandise. And then of course they took out the big curtain that used to block the sunlight from coming in, so the whole place is like really bright in there, and it just doesn't it's just not right. It's just none of it's right, Matt. None of it.
Yeah, it's all left. It's not right, you guys. Yeah,
I hurt you.
Yeah, I guess it is worth noting, kind of, I don't know if this plays into anything. A lot of the shops, I feel like we've talked about this as well in the past, but like every single shop in the entirety of Disneyland sells the exact same merchandise. Like you can go into a shop in Frontierland and buy something that's also in a shop that could be in a shop down on Main Street. And I feel like this almost sort of speaks to the whole problem of shops in Disneyland, because from my understanding in the past, you could have gone to like a shop in Frontierland and bought like Frontierland themed merchandise. I could be wrong. I don't know. It just seems like the most logical thing to do, right? Like to sell merchandise themed.
When I was a kid, it was like that. It was like when you went to Main Street, if you wanted to get clothes, you either got them from the Emporium or from the clothiers. And I'm just talking about Main Street here. I'm not talking about the other shops. But if you wanted to get clothes, it was either the Emporium or it was the clothiers. If you wanted to get watches, you went to the watch shop. If you wanted to get bakery food, you went to the Blue Ribbon Bakery, which doesn't exist anymore. And if you wanted to get glassware, you went to the Crystal Shop, which they still sell crystal, but they're starting to change over to more other kinds of stuff like glass and whatever. And it's just, but yeah, it was like Main Street was a lot more specialized back then, and the rest of the shops in the park too. It was like, okay, so when I was a kid, there were two shops in New Orleans Square. There was Le Baton Rouge, and then there was another shop. And Le Baton Rouge, it had all like Haunted Mansion / Nightmare Before Christmas themed stuff, and a lot of other Gothic themed stuff. And today it still does, but it's like they created a second shop, which I believe is also they kept okay, I don't remember exactly what it was, but the shop today known as Le Baton Rouge doesn't sell that stuff. Now today it's a special shop towards Pirates of the Caribbean that sells that stuff. So it's like, ow, okay, never mind. I hurt myself. Yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, people are saying that you can get like land specific merch in Tokyo, which I don't know. I guess T-Will would know because he's in Tokyo at the moment. I'm pretty sure it's either Tokyo or China. I think it's Tokyo, so I'm gonna trust him when he says that.
Yeah, I can see how you can confuse the two.
Anyways, yeah, I need everybody who's watching either live on the stream or who's watching this at a later date, whether it be on Spotify, link in the description, whether it be on iTunes, link in the description. Leave us a 5-star review, by the way. Anyone who's watching this or listening to it. Would it be too much? Would it be bad to ask everybody here to complain, to like write a complaint to Disney about this?
I was going to yesterday when I was there and I forgot, but I think next time I go, I will, if it's still there.
Okay, well, I'm going to use my powers here for a little bit of chaotic good. I need everybody who's watching this to either write an email to Disney, be sensible about it at least. Tell them not to defile our poor baby like this anymore. I mean, she's putting herself out there in ways that are really unsavory, ways that I feel like people around here should not be putting themselves out like this. Chaotic evil. I think it's more chaotic good. But yeah, go email Disney or tweet at them. I'm not really sure if the tweets will make much of a difference, but I know if we get like enough people to send like a mass email, maybe we can get like all of Diz Twitter to sign a petition and then mail that to Disney. That probably would get absolutely nothing done. But yeah, I do feel like a bunch of emails. Yeah, a bunch of emails would probably be the trick. Or we can all just not buy from it if it's there next time we go to the parks. I mean, yeah, this poor cinema, she's being peddled for cash. It's really unsavory in my opinion. But chaotic evil would be getting there and trashing the yeah. But anyways, yeah, leave your thoughts on this down in the description below, because I can't imagine anybody being happy about this. Like I said, this is a really I don't know if sacred is the right word, but yeah, I guess to me it's pretty sacred. It's a real sacred little area in Main Street where, like I said, you can cool off, watch some vintage Mickey Mouse clips. So yeah, leave your comments down in the description below, or in the comment section actually below about this. But yeah, anyways, moving on to our startachange.org petition. That would do nothing also. But moving on to our second bit of news from the peak. This past Friday, you guys, I bet you guys didn't know this, but this past Friday was actually my birthday. It was the Matterhorn's 60th anniversary. I turned 60 on Friday, you guys. As well as the monorail and the submarine voyage. So I felt like it'd be nice to sort of take a step back, look at these attractions, look at their impact that they've had on the parks from their opening to now, which is kind of weird because all of these attractions are still open and operating in some capacity. It wasn't actually my birthday, you guys. I was just playing a meme because it's the Matterhorn. It was the Matterhorn's birthday. But yeah, it's kind of weird because all of these attractions are still operating today, which I'm not sure you can really say the same thing for other 60-year-old attractions in the park. Yeah, so we can probably, like I said, take a step back, look at all these rides, talk about the impact they've had on Disneyland, and yeah, so... Is Disney doing anything for the 60th anniversary of these rides? They released really nice pins. That's really all I've seen. But yeah, so Alex, I don't really know where to go from here, to be honest.
What do you mean?
I have no direction when it comes to this topic, so...
What topic?
Talking about the... Oh, I guess I never explained what we're talking about, so... We're gonna be talking about the monorail, the Matterhorn, and the submarine voyage, which, like I said, just celebrated their 60th anniversary on Friday, the 14th of June. Yeah, like I said, we're gonna take a step back, talk about the history of these rides, the impact they've had on Disneyland as a whole, and maybe even on other Disney parks as well. I guess I can start. So, yeah, like I said, it is very interesting that all of these rides are still opening today in some capacity. You know, albeit the submarine voyage has changed from the original to the Finding Nemo submarine voyage, and it's also interesting as well because the futures of these attractions are, you know, kind of in a gray area at the moment, minus the Matterhorn, which is probably never going anywhere unless it blows up from the inside from being too old. But yeah, we've talked in the past on this show about the future of the monorail as well as the submarine voyage, what we think is going to happen to them in the future versus, you know, what the rumors have been saying to us.
Maybe we should structure this in a way that we talk about the past first when it comes to conception, and then into implementation, and then we should move into the present day, which includes what it means to us and how it functions, and then the future as to what we think will happen to it.
Okay, that is very good. And I'll leave a link in the description to a very lovely article posted to the Walt Disney Family Museum blog. Very lovely article. And I didn't even know they had a blog up until this point. But yeah, so I guess it's worth noting from the inception of these rides sort of came forth, you know, as Walt's fascination of different modes of transportation grew, with the monorail and the submarine voyage being, you know, I guess you could call the submarine voyage like a... I don't really know if Walt ever really considered submarines as like a more futuristic type of transportation like he did with the monorail. Maybe that's something... Okay, yeah, so...
That's like saying that he considered a toboggan sled like future transportation.
Okay, I was just checking. But yeah, the creation of these rides also prompted the creation of a brand new tier of a ticket. You know, you had the A, B, C, and D tickets. The E-ticket was born out of these attractions being born as well. So happy birthday to the E-ticket. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Walt wanted just oceans everywhere, so we could all drive our personal family-sized submarines to like the movie theaters or to the, you know, to the restaurant. Maybe we could take a submarine to Olive Garden or something. But yeah, anyways, Alex, do you have anything you'd like to say about the... Well, I guess Alex does have a really nice video that he put out a couple I think it was actually a week ago, on the history of the monorail, was it? I think it was a two-part, actually, a two-parter.
It was a 2-part episode about the history of the monorail. That was put out a few weeks ago, maybe like 2 weeks ago. And I'm currently working on the history of the Matterhorn at this very
Well,
this
he was
very
born
moment.
on April 23rd, 1998. That's your start right there.
Oh my God, you're so much younger than me. Okay, so when it comes to the history of these attractions, so let's start with the first one, which was the submarines. I believe the submarines was the attraction to be thought of for this expansion and considered. And Walt really just wanted to take people into the ocean and to give them a more permanent version of what was already there, which was the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea exhibit, which existed right where Star Tours is today. And people really loved that walkthrough. And that walkthrough was really only put in very last minute. And it was so popular, they kept it for several years. I want to say almost like a decade, maybe almost like half a decade, whatever. Point is, they wanted to create like a ride version of that. And so they came up with the idea of these submarines, and people would get in them and it would feel like a real experience where you're diving and then you go underwater and you can see all these amazing sights and whatever. I don't know exactly why it was never 100% themed to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Probably because there was already a popular exhibit that they didn't plan to close yet. But yeah, I'll figure that one out later. But anyway, so the 8 submarines was the largest, one of the largest submarine fleets in the world. They all ran on diesel, which today they are now electric, but they all ran on diesel. And trying to think of any other fun facts about them. It was a very unique experience is what I can really say about that. So when it comes to the other attractions, like
and we all know the submarines today are Alex's favorite attraction in Disneyland.
You know,
tell him about the story with the baby and the poop.
So I don't really ride the submarines anymore, not because I don't like the ride. I actually really love the ride. The problem is that it's a very tight space. You're crammed in with literally 41 other people. There's not very much ventilation. I mean, yeah, they blow fresh air against each window, so that way when you're like peeking your head into the window, you get fresh air. But the problem is that like the main air intake is like not big enough to pump a huge volume of air through the whole submarine. So it's just, let's just put it this way. It's very cramped and the air is really stale in there. And this one lady came on the submarine with her child that she fully knew had a full diaper. Okay. And she knew it. And someone suggested maybe she just like go take the child and like, have the diaper changed. But she insisted that she waited for so long in the line that she was not going to get out of line now. Mm-hmm. So she went on, and I didn't know this until like after I had already gotten seated and she walked in. They close up the submarine, they start up the ride, and the whole thing starts smelling like poop. And it just smelled so bad. And I think by the time the submarine got into the caves, which is like the first like 2/3 of the ride, it just smelled so bad I was gagging. Like, oh my God, I was ready to throw up. And I'm not exaggerating. I really was gagging. It was so pungent and disgusting. And And I couldn't even enjoy the ride because all I could think of is please don't puke, please don't puke, please don't puke. And anyway, so I'm like hoping like, oh God, like, hopefully I don't puke before this ride is over. But then when we got to the end, there was like a backup of submarines like at the loading dock. So we had to wait we had to wait to get off the submarine. And we must have waited there for like at least 6 minutes. And that was just an extra 6 minutes in that submarine. It's hot, it's humid, it's musky, on top of the fact that it smells like baby poop. So, and I mean really strong baby poop. I mean, you might as well have just shoved the diaper into everyone's face because that's how strong it was. So that was the second instance to which I made me decide never to go on it again. And that was at least 2 years ago. So I haven't rode it again since then, and I refuse to in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways, submarines, I don't often go on them every time I go to the park. I don't think we went on them at all when I went with my family back in June, but I did go on them once with Chris in December. I can't really say my experience was glowing. I can't really give it like a 10 out of 10. I give it like a 6 out of 10. Because it's a really old ride, you guys, like we said. It's been open for 60 years, and most of it hasn't really, been changed at all. Minus like the projection stuff for the Nemo fish and everything. It's a pretty boring attraction, in my opinion at least. I'm sure back in the day it was pretty awesome to ride a submarine. But
I can see how it would have been really fun to be in a submarine, and it was kind of a realistic experience back then, because back then it was treated a lot like how the original Jungle Cruise was. It was like a factual experience, and then it became more whimsical as the years went on, to the point where now it's Finding Nemo. But I mean, like, it would have been like a really amazing experience. I'm trying to think of what else to say. Anywho, so the future of the submarines. The future of the submarines looks really grim because of the fact that the submarine lagoon uses up a lot of water. Gallons and gallons and gallons of which get evaporated every day. I believe there's something around like at least like 600 to almost 1,000 gallons of water evaporates per day, as well as the fact that there are tons of leaks in the submarine lagoon. It's a very old lagoon, and yes, they do patch it up once in a while, but the thing is like, it's after all these years, it's like trying to patch up Swiss cheese. It's just like, there's just too many cracks at this point. And they have thought about, ripping it up and completely repaving it. But then you're literally purchasing a whole new ride. So at that rate, it's kind of like, well, you might as well do something else other than submarines, because this is the ride is costly to maintain anyway. All that water, they're constantly purchasing water for it. They're constantly filtering water, which takes up lots of chlorine. And no, I do not mean bromine. Bromine breaks down in sunlight, and chlorine does not break down in sunlight. And most of the ride is in the sun. So it's like, it's chlorine. Point is, that's a lot of chlorine to purchase every day to filter out all that water. We're talking, I think it was something like 5 to 10 million gallons. I could be way under calculating that, but if I remember correctly, it's like somewhere around 5 to 10 million gallons of water in that lagoon. And lastly, it's a very low capacity attraction. I believe somewhere around 800 people per hour, which is nothing. You look at Pirates of the Caribbean, on a good day, it's capable of close to 3,000 people per hour. So that's a huge difference. Disney has thought about building more submarines, but there is a timing issue. The ride is timed, and they go through these different scenery sets and things like that in a certain amount of time. And whenever there's a backup, which happens very often, especially if they're using 6 or 7 submarines in the lagoon at once, things back up and the ride doesn't go according to the proper timing. So it's just a huge headache for Disney to keep this ride open. And as for its future, the current rumors are that the submarine lagoon will be closed permanently, and so will the Autopia, and that whole area will be completely cleared out to make a brand new space for future Fantasyland expansion. So, and in my opinion, that's probably a good thing, because that ride is super expensive. I remember, get this, I want to say the year 2010 or 2011 too, Disney announced that they had finally figured out a way to efficiently turn off the projectors in the ride.
Wait,
because those
what?
projectors, yes. So from 2007 to 2010, all the projectors on the ride stayed on day and night, all day long, every day. Because to turn on a projector, if any of you own a projector, you know that it takes a while for the light bulb to heat up and then for it to turn on. And then it's not like turning on your computer. It takes a good like 20 minutes to turn on the projector in your house. But or at least it used to. Probably projectors are faster now. The point is that these are huge projectors, and they take at least half an hour to turn on. They also take about 15 minutes to cool off in order to shut them down. So this kind of inefficiency makes it so like it's not easy to go down in there and start switching and turning off projectors and stuff like that. And so back then Disney didn't do that. They kept the projectors on day and night. Unfortunately, that racked up a huge electrical bill because there's a lot of projectors down there. And so around 2010 or 2011, Disney had I think purchased new projectors, more efficient ones, which could turn on and turn off a lot faster. They were also slightly more energy efficient, and they were all connected to one computer system as opposed to a few different ones. And so it could all be turned off with the click of a mouse from a different room. So then they were like touting this as like a big deal. And I forgot how much electricity they said they were going to save. But I do think I remember them saying that like they were saving a couple $1,000 per month on electricity just by turning the projectors off at night. So yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I guess on the same topic of the future of the submarines, I guess there have also been rumors as well that they'll keep the lagoon. So I guess that's worth, or at least a part of the lagoon. They're gonna keep a portion of the submarine lagoon.
Yeah, there's rumor about that because the lagoon does have a certain aesthetically pleasing feature, being right there next to the Matterhorn. Like the lagoon, the exterior of the lagoon looks really pretty, despite the fact that it's like chlorinated water. And I think I think a lot of Imagineers want to see if they save the exterior lagoon from being demolished in order to keep the aesthetic look. But I think that if they do end up keeping the outside lagoon, they're probably going to turn it into fresh water, like the Rivers of America is, in order to save on costs. Because they literally have to do almost nothing to maintain the Rivers of America. It's not filtered. It's not anything. I think once a year, they go out there and they dump some gallons of beneficial bacteria in there. Other than that, they do almost nothing. So I think like if they do want to keep the exterior lagoon of the submarines, it's probably going to be converted to fresh water.
Yeah, so we've talked about this in the past, and I'm sure you guys have voiced your opinions on your thoughts about these submarines and the submarine lagoon in the comments. So I don't feel like we should really stick around on this one for a bit. I think the one I really want to talk about the most is the monorail, because out of all three of the attractions, the monorail, the Matterhorn, and the submarine voyage, I feel like that one's almost the most influential when it comes to Walt's vision and what Walt was moving towards after he built these attractions, because of course, you could trace the history of Epcot back to the conception of the monorail in Disneyland, almost as well as the People Mover that opened a few years after the monorail. And I just feel like the monorail is the better attraction out of all three of them. That might be kind of weird to say, because I mean, how could you guys are probably thinking like, how can you rank the monorail above like a literal roller coaster?
This is coming from the guy who almost named his channel. Okay.
Wait. Okay, so Alex was gonna say something, but then he cut out right as he was gonna say that. So you said this is coming from the guy who almost named his channel, and then your audio cut out, and then we couldn't hear what you said. So
okay, I was saying this is coming from the guy who almost named his channel Monorail Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, Matterhorn Matt has a better ring to it, but I do like the monorail better than the Matterhorn, which I'm sure if you guys have been watching the show or stuck with the channel for long enough, you'll know my opinions on the Matterhorn. I mean, it's a great ride, great, piece of history. The first steel tubular coaster ever? Something like that.
Yeah.
Compared to like an air-conditioned box that runs around on tracks. I mean...
No, compared to flat rail coasters.
Oh, yeah, okay. But yeah, I do like the monorail a great deal more than the Matterhorn, because one, you don't get a concussion every time you ride the every time you ride the monorail. Two, you get great views of the park that you can't necessarily get from the Matterhorn. I mean, sure, you can twist your head around when you're at the peak of the coaster going outside, but at that point, you should just be focusing more on trying not to get concussed than staring at the scenery. And three, you don't get nasty water splashed into your mouth at the very end of the ride. You guys are riding the Matterhorn wrong. Am I riding it wrong? Is there a right way to ride the Matterhorn? I don't know. I don't know. T-Will, please elaborate. Maybe it's because I'm so tall. That might have something to do with it. 6'1" dude over here trying to squeeze into the tiny bobsleds of the Matterhorn. I don't know. That might have something to do with it. But anyways, I want to talk about the monorail and save the Matterhorn for last. Because, like I said, in my opinion, I do think the monorail is the better attraction. And like I said, you can trace the history of Epcot, the original Epcot, not the Epcot we have now, back to the creation of the monorail. And I think even in Alex's video, his video that he made on the Matterhorn, I think even a couple weeks ago he said on the show that the monorail station was not like a historic landmark, but I can't quite remember the wording that Alex used.
It is a historical engineering landmark, which is a title given to it by the ASME, which is the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. Many people mistaken it for a national historic landmark, but that is not true. It is a private organization has deemed it a engineering landmark, which means nothing according to the United States, protocols of protecting landmarks. It has nothing to do with that. So the monorail is not officially protected by the United States. Disney can do whatever they want with it.
And that Disney will do whatever they want with it because, I guess we should get into the history of the matter of the monorail.
Yeah.
So, Alex.
Okay, obviously. It's like, you can't expect, the history land give the history of the monorail. No.
Yeah. I mean, Alex did make a 2-part video about the monorail, so I do feel like he's more qualified to talk about it. So, but anyway, I'll talk about the Matterhorn in great depth. Don't worry, you guys. I'm just letting Alex take these two.
I think my Matterhorn video is going to be really good. Okay, so anyway, the monorail. So basically, before this expansion of Disneyland happened with the Matterhorn, there was an attraction there that was called the Viewliner. The Viewliner was basically a miniature train, like a diesel train, that ran on rails around Tomorrowland, taking people to and from Fantasyland. There was a stop there, and there was usually 2 trains. And so the Viewliner was not exactly what Walt wanted. Walt wanted a monorail, but the problem was at the time of Disneyland's opening, they couldn't figure out how to make a monorail that was both safe and efficient, as well as a monorail that Mrs. Walt Disney would actually ride herself, because she was deathly afraid of the traditional monorails at the time, of which only existed in places like Europe. So this side of the globe was completely free of any kind of monorail at the time. Well, fast forward to a time when Walt and Lillian were driving around in Cologne, Germany. Walt saw a monorail speed by along the side of the road. Long story short, because most people know the story, and you can always check out my video if you don't, but Walt was able to talk to the company which designed this monorail that he saw. He liked its design. Lily liked the design, and he decided to implement it at Disneyland. He had a bunch of Imagineers on the case, mostly a lot of the aesthetic design work and some of the engineering work was done by none other than Bob Gurr himself. The monorails were manufactured by the Disney company at the Disney Studios, though they were originally supposed to be manufactured by the German company, Alweg, but they were not. Anyway, the monorail is completely electric. At the time, it ran on DC. Today, it runs on 600 volts DC. And let's see. And originally, there were only 2 monorails. There was red and there was blue. Each one had only 3 cars with 3 compartments each car, holding about six people per compartment, I want to say. That doesn't matter. Anyway, so let's see here. So soon after the monorail opened, it was a really successful attraction. Walt had hoped that he could work with the Alweg company to design a monorail system for Los Angeles, and having the monorail at Disneyland was the way to get the world interested in monorails, as well as to provide some good entertainment at Disneyland. Anyway, that didn't pan out, but the monorail system did expand to the Mark II design, which had 4 cars and glass windows. Then it expanded later on in 1969, so 10 years later, to the Mark III monorail, which had 5 cars, glass windows, and a lot more headroom for people to walk around. And then the ones I grew up with were introduced in 1987. Those were the Mark V monorails. Those ones had the headspace that you can currently experience in the monorail, though it's not much because you still have to lean over quite a bit so you don't hit your head on the ceiling of the monorail. And now today we have the Mark VII monorail. The first one was introduced in December of 2007, the same year that the Finding Nemo submarine voyage had opened at Disneyland. And they have been operating ever since. And that's the basic history of the Disneyland monorail. Oh, one more thing. The monorail used to only be a ride in Disneyland. So it only zigzagged around Tomorrowland back in 1959. But in 1962, when they introduced the Mark II monorail, they expanded the track so that way the monorail went all the way to the Disneyland Hotel, to which nowadays, though the route has not been majorly altered, instead of going to the hotel, which actually the hotel moved places, now it just stops in the middle of downtown Disney, which is beneficial to other hotel guests besides Disneyland hotel guests. Whew, that was a lot of talking. Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said, I love the monorail. I guess we can sort of get into the future or the present of the monorail. Like I said at the beginning, all of these rides are still operating today in some capacity, and monorail's still chugging along up there, even though her poor paint job is being destroyed by all those ugly stickers that they keep putting on there. I don't really think there's much else. I mean, other than the fact, like I said, that it's still running today, I guess.
Yeah, those monorails are pretty hardy. They're generally designed nowadays to last about 20 years before needing to be completely rebuilt. And to put that in perspective, I believe the current Walt Disney World monorails were introduced one, so pretty sure. So imagine how old those are and how long ago they needed to be replaced. But anyway, so let's see, what was I going to say? Oh, so moving into what the monorails mean to us today. So to me, I know a lot of people say like, oh, I don't really care about the monorail. Like, you know, like it's okay looking, but it's not really necessary. Some people I know who are probably watching right now or probably watching later have told me in the past that the monorail is inefficient and it's not necessary. But my arguments are to the contrary. You see, a monorail system can be very efficient if done in a city. Unfortunately, the Disneyland monorail exists in Disneyland, which is a very tiny length of track. There isn't very much space to put a ton of monorails on it. Disney used to do 3 monorails operating at once. But since the unfortunate crash at Walt Disney World in 2009, they've only ran 2 monorails at a time. And that's not very efficient for moving guests, especially Disneyland guests. But the monorail could work in a city, and it's been proven. And it's just that monorails are super expensive. But anywho, so to me, the Disneyland monorail is more than just the original. You know, it represents a part of us that love transportation. Walt Disney loved transportation. I know a lot of us love cars. We all, you know, we all have a car that we wish to own and stuff like that. But there's a part of us who are fans of the Disneyland monorail that all because of the experience of riding it. And if not for it being a public transit system, then for it being part of Disneyland and the experience of getting in and out of Disneyland. And so I would be greatly saddened if the monorail was ever taken away from Disneyland. I think that it should, in different capacities, it should stay. It doesn't have to be the way it always is, but there should always be a monorail at Disneyland. I think that it's still useful. And you know what? The hotel guests use it. The guests who are staying at Paradise Pier Hotel, Disneyland Hotel, and Grand Californian, they use the monorail to get in. So it's still necessary. And that's what I think about the present day of the monorail. So Matt, why don't you tell us what you think, how you feel about the monorail?
Like I said, I love the monorail. It's almost one of those rides that you have to ride when you go to Disneyland at least once. Kind of like the train, almost. Yeah, I really do love the monorail. Like I agree with Alex. If it's ever taken away, I'm going to be really sad because it is such a big piece of not just Disneyland history, but Disney history as well. Yeah. Anyways, that's how I feel about the monorail in current present day. I do wish they would update. I'm not a big fan of the design of the monorail. I really do like the ones that Walt Disney World has. I think Alex said they were the Mark V at Disneyland. I really like those designs. They'll probably never bring them back though, because I guess I can see how they do look kind of 90s. 80s-ish.
You know, yeah, I mean, I liked the Mark V design for its time, but I prefer the Mark VII design currently. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Mark V design was perfect for the decades in which it operated.
Yeah.
But I think the Mark VII is perfect for the current decades which it's operating. But it will need to be redesigned within the next 10 years in order to meet with, aesthetic designs of the future. By the way, T. Will mentioned something which I think a lot of people it goes into a subject which a lot of people would talk about when it comes to the Disneyland monorail. So T. Will said a monorail is nothing compared to a Shinkansen. For those of you who don't know, a Shinkansen is a Japanese bullet train. And so that's funny because T-Well isn't the only person to compare Disneyland's monorail to a different form of transportation, such as like the maglev or the Shinkansen or other types of bullet trains. But you see, the thing is that you have to think about what it's designed for. Monorails are not designed for long distance travel. They're not designed. I know there was a conspiracy over California wanting to build a monorail that goes from LA to San Francisco. And everyone said, oh, that's not going to work. And even I agreed that's not going to work. Monorails are not designed to go that far. Monorails are designed to take you around a city. They're designed to replace a trolley on the street. That's what they're designed to replace. They're supposed to take, every stop is supposed to be a few blocks from each other, not like several dozen miles. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're fast. Monorails can travel up to 75 miles per hour, but that's really pushing it, and so it's just, you have to think about how they're designed. So monorails are supposed to replace the streetcar, to which people in cities use the streetcar to take them to a street which has the bus that they need to take to where they need to go, because buses have shorter distances between their stops. So Matt probably doesn't know this because he lives in such a small town, but so yes, monorails are meant to replace a streetcar. They're not meant to compete with things like a Shinkansen, which goes sometimes 20 to even 100 miles between stops. So, yeah.
I think they should turn the monorail into a roller coaster and have it go 75 miles all the time on the track. Wouldn't that be something? But anyways,
Wow.
into the future of the monorail. We've discussed the future of the monorail in great depth a few episodes ago on this channel. And again, these are all rumors that we're referring to. But I guess the current rumor is that the monorail, for the most part, is safe from any further expansion from the park, minus the fact that it the track will most likely be shortened a great deal. I can't quite recall off the top of my head where these trimmings of the track are going to be. I'm assuming it's going to be, the majority of it's going to be over the Fantasyland area where the monorail currently goes. But yeah, for all you avid monorail fans, to breathe a breath of fresh air, according to the rumors that we've heard, the monorail is safe, unless something changes in the future, which I don't think they'd ever get rid of the monorail, to be honest. That'd be like getting rid of the Disneyland Railroad. Almost kind of comparable, maybe. But yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So my last thoughts on the future of the monorail is like what Matt said. All the rumors currently circulating are that the monorail is here to stay. It's just that the big winding track that goes over the Autopia is going to be removed in order to make way for Fantasyland expansion. And as for the monorail itself, the station is going to stay where it is. It has something to, like, I don't know, the station itself being some kind of, at least Disneyland historical landmark. But the track itself is not safe from demolition. So supposedly the station's going to stay where it is, but the track will actually circle around the perimeter of Tomorrowland as the monorail travels into Tomorrowland and then leaves Tomorrow. So yeah, and I'm okay with this. I mean, I love that the monorail zigzags over, but I also feel like it's not as efficient. Like, because it takes an extra 2 minutes to travel over Autopia, I feel like it makes people have to wait at the monorail stations longer to get on their monorail. You know what I mean? It just takes up extra time, unnecessary time. And the monorail is still very fun. So, and Carrie asks, will the monorail still pass around the Matterhorn? And according to the rumors I've heard, no. As a matter of fact, it no longer makes sense for that to happen, because the Matterhorn is no longer officially in Fantasyland now. So having the monorail go around it is no longer makes sense, because the monorail used to be the border. Gosh, I can't even talk today. The monorail used to be the border between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, and it no longer is. So the idea now is that the monorail will travel around the perimeter of Tomorrowland, passing over the entrance to Tomorrowland, and then making a right, turning into the monorail station. Another rumor is that it will pass directly down the center of Tomorrowland, though I have to tell you that sharp of a turn going into the monorail station from there is way too tight for the monorail. So I think it's going to go around the perimeter of Tomorrowland. Point is that no, it's not going to wrap around the Matterhorn in the future.
Now, getting into the Matterhorn, I do have one question. Is the Matterhorn the only ride that is flip-flopped between being in two separate lands? I feel like it is, right? I'm trying to think of another example where it's been like changed. A ride has changed from being in like Fantasyland to Tomorrowland, and then I can't quite think of another example.
You know, at the moment, the Matterhorn is the only ride I can think of that has stayed in the same place, but has been in two different lands. So, yeah, That's the only one I can think of. Yeah.
Well, interesting. Add that to your list of Disneyland fun facts, unless at some point we get proven wrong, which happens sometimes. Sometimes we get proven wrong on the show. But anyways, yeah, moving into the Matterhorn. As you guys know, I'm not a big fan of the Matterhorn. I'm sure it was great when it opened. T-Wheel did say in the chat the correct way you're supposed to ride the Matterhorn. And I always just like sit and like just lean back and just like let it bump me around. But I guess you're supposed to like, he said to sit up, grab the handrails.
He said to sit in the front.
Yeah,
grab the handrails. But what if you can't sit in the front? What if you're one of the other, 5 people who are forced to sit? It's like, but let me provide some historical background to the Matterhorn, because the number one thing we're going to see in the chat or the comment section on this video is, why haven't they smoothed out the ride? Okay, so let me tell you about the history, and in the history will be the reason why it can't happen. Okay, so off the top of my head, I forget exactly what month or year Walt had requested the Matterhorn be constructed. But I do remember that Walt wanted the Matterhorn open, obviously, for the 1959 expansion opening. The Matterhorn itself. So Walt was filming the movie Third Man on the Mountain, which featured the Matterhorn, and Walt realized that after being begged to create some kind of thrill ride at Disneyland, which Walt was originally against thrill rides, he did not want Disneyland to feel like an amusement park. But when the idea of creating a Mad Mouse coaster at Disneyland came up, which, for those of you who don't know, Mad Mouse coaster is like, if you're here at California, then think of the Goofy's Sky School. That is a Mad Mouse coaster. Or if you're in Florida, think of the
Primeval Whirl.
Primeval Whirl. Yeah, Whirl. Think of the Primeval Whirl. Those two coasters are considered Mad Mouse coasters. It's also important to note, back then, all roller coasters, including Mad Mouse coasters, had flat steel rails, a lot like a railroad rail. And so the idea was that Disneyland would have a Mad Mouse coaster, but would be heavily themed. Mad Mouse coasters don't travel all that fast generally, so there would have been time for people to experience some kind of theming. Well, Walt was filming Third Man on the Mountain. He came back with the idea that they should reconstruct the Matterhorn at Disneyland, and that's where the Mad Mouse coaster would be. Now, from there, it evolved into the idea that you'd be taking a toboggan ride through the slopes of the Matterhorn. But Walt and a bunch of the Imagineers were very adamant that Mad Mouse coasters do not feel like toboggan rides. It's just too rough and too jerky. If any of you have been on a Mad Mouse coaster,
jerky, if you may.
Wow. So, anyway, what was I saying? See, you interrupted me. Now I can't. My train of thought is. Okay, so. All right, so if any of you have been on a Mad Mouse coaster, every time it goes around a corner, its whole premise to the thrill is the sharp turns and really jerky feel you get when you go around these corners. Walt didn't want that. That's not what a toboggan feels. It's very smooth. It has angles to it, because when you go around corners on a toboggan, you start going up the side of a slope as you're rounding a corner. Walt wanted that at Disneyland. So they had to think of a new way to do things. And flat rails could not do that. Flat steel rails were just not that flexible and just couldn't provide that smooth feel. So it was Bob Gurr who was, if I have the story correctly, again, I'd have to check my notes before I make a video on this, but off the top of my head, since I'm doing a podcast and I wasn't prepared for this, I believe Bob Gurr was actually looking at one of the tubular steel handrails at Disneyland. There's a lot of them around. They're made literally of a pipe that is bent in all kinds of shapes in order to make handrails. And he was looking at it and he was like, why don't we have the coaster built on that? And so basically he went and spoke to the ride manufacturer, which was Aero Development. They are now called a different name today. Aero Development was racking their brain on this. They couldn't figure. Bob said, use tubular steel. Then everything started falling into place. They realized that it could work. They could make a really smooth coaster. Now, as to the reason why the ride is so rough, there are two main reasons. The first main reason is that the ride track was mounted directly to the support structure. See, everyone is like giving me all kinds of tips and pointers in the chat, and it's really messing with my head. Okay, so again, I know these things. It's just they're in my notes. Okay, I'm trying here. All right. So the track is mounted directly to the steel framework that holds up the whole mountain. Today, you would not build a roller coaster like that. There are laws about building the ride track support separate from the structure the ride is going through. This is for earthquake safety. That way, if the main structure is damaged, it won't damage the ride track, and vice versa. If the ride track gets damaged, it won't damage the structure. So, but both were combined into one back then because there were no rules out there on how to build a roller coaster in a mountain. It was the first time they've ever done this. So from there, that was one of the big reasons why it can't be changed without the whole ride being destroyed and rebuilt from the ground up the proper way. That's why they can't do it. The laws would dictate that the whole ride have to be destroyed as opposed to fixing the track. Okay, so next, the other reason why it is so rough is because Bob Gurr came out of school for automobile design. Okay, he was asked to build a roller coaster by Walt Disney. He was not a roller coaster engineer, but he did take on the task as best he knew how. Back then, because tubular steel roller coasters had never been built before, they didn't have the current knowledge that we have today on how to make them so smooth. There are ways of banking the tracks in such a way that instead of when you go from a straight level track into a curve, they bank it on the Matterhorn. And instead of flinging your whole body, let's say, to the left or right in order to bank the turn, modern day roller coasters will raise and bank the turns in such a way that it is your legs and your butt that is moving as opposed to your head and your shoulders around the curve. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So instead of jolting you to the left or right, you're actually smoothly being rotated, your whole body being rotated at once from a center point around what they call your heart. There's a word for it. It's like heartline geometry. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's called like heartline geometry. And the idea is that your heart is where your body should be rotated on a roller coaster as opposed to the track being rotated around a curve. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Whew, God, that was a lot. Anyway, point is that if Disney wanted to fix these two major issues, or even just one of the two major issues, it would involve having to destroy the whole coaster. And despite what people believe, the entire ride track has been replaced at least twice, if I have that correctly. The ride track was completely replaced in 1978 because it got really rough and bumpy. And then it was completely replaced again in sometime in the last 20 years. I don't know what year off the top of my head, but it was completely replaced sometime in the last 20 years. So, yes.
Yeah. Now, I guess getting into the present day Matterhorn, I don't really think the Matterhorn has seen many changes compared to the other attractions. I mean, of course, the holes were patched up from where the Skyway used to go. I guess all the holes, most of them in general, were patched up. There's some sort of quote to go along with that from Walt, I'm pretty sure, which I can't recall off the top of my head.
I do.
Oh. Please tell. Yes.
You really want me to say?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the story goes, and I'm paraphrasing, but Walt was showing some kids the Matterhorn, and this boy had basically looked at the Matterhorn. There was all these holes in it, just tons of cave holes. And he turned to Walt and he asked Walt, why were there so many holes in the Matterhorn? Walt responded, because it's Swiss.
Oh, wait. There we go. Yeah, like I said, funny quote from Walt. Yeah, besides, like I said, Skyway not going through it anymore, holes being patched up, track being replaced a couple times, not real much has really changed about the ride from what I can recall off the top of my head. I could be wrong. People in the comments will probably...
It has.
Oh.
So the Matterhorn, when it was built, it didn't have caves like it does today.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The entire interior was completely hollow except for the structure that it was supported. And they crudely covered the steel beams with like fake like rock work, which was painted like a bluish white to look like ice. But it still looked quite obviously like a steel structure. But in 1978, for a complete refurbishment of the Matterhorn, actually, in order to redo the Matterhorn in time for 20th anniversary, they installed caves in the entire Matterhorn. So they just planned it out and put these concrete caves through the whole ride track. And then that was also the same time that they introduced the Yeti. So that's when Harold first came about, was in 1978, because they wanted to give guests this new exciting thing to look for as they travel through the Matterhorn, and that's where Harold came from.
God bless Harold, man. He's been there for forever. He got retired. He's now in Galaxy's Edge now, so good for him. What's the name of the new? Because there's a different Yeti from when there was. They did a refurb, I think, in 2014, around that time. I'm pretty sure. They replaced the Yeti. They replaced Harold. He retired. He's now, like I said, on a very luxurious vacation in the galaxy far, far away.
I thought he was at Guardians of the Galaxy.
I'm pretty sure they moved him from Guardians of the Galaxy to Galaxy's Edge. I could be wrong. I saw a picture a while ago of him.
You sure that wasn't the Wampa? Because they have a giant ice monster.
That might have been, that might have been what I've seen. So then he's still in Mission Breakout then. I guess it's easy to get those two confused because they look kind of the same. So yeah, I was wrong.
I don't know. I don't know if the new Yeti is Harold or not. T. Well says he's still Harold.
I swear I could have recalled people giving him a different name, like Bobby. Not Bobby, but like a different name other than Harold.
Bobby Iger.
Oh my gosh, guys. That's where he came from. He crawled out of the cave of the Matterhorn, and now he's the CEO. Anyways, going on to the future of the Matterhorn, I don't really think anything is... I mean, they got a new queue earlier this year, late last year, but other than that, there's really been no word no rumors from what I can recall about the future of the Matterhorn. I mean, of course, they're not going to, like, bring in a big crane and just, like, pick it up and move it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, at least to my knowledge, they could still do that. But, yeah, from what we've heard, nothing's really been, in the works in regards to changing the Matterhorn, in regards to closing the Matterhorn. So, yeah, all you Matterhorn fans, however many of those there are, you can rejoice because the Matterhorn is here to stay until it crumbles apart in the next big earthquake that happens.
You know what's funny though is, so when it comes to the Matterhorn, they over-engineered it in the past in order to make sure that it could withstand earthquakes, because they didn't know this was like the first man-made mountain of its kind. And they didn't really know like how it would fare in an earthquake. So they over-engineered it to make sure it was very sturdy during an earthquake, which is why it's lasted all these years, despite all the big California earthquakes we've had. However, those like that kind of has changed when they added all the caves. Those caves are made of concrete. They're very heavy, and the original Matterhorn wasn't designed with the idea in mind that the entire would be filled with concrete caves. So I don't really know how well the will do in the next big earthquake. Had there not been these giant concrete caves in it, it probably would do fine when we get the quote big one unquote. However, what I do know is that most steel structures what?
Nothing, never mind.
Wow. However, what I do know is that most steel structures have a lifespan of 100 years. Yes, even the Golden Gate Bridge has a lifespan of 100 years, which they can extend a bit more with really good refreshes, but nothing lasts forever. So the Matterhorn, no matter how well they take care of it, it'll last about 100 years. Maybe they can push it to 140. But sometime in the next 40 years, they'll have to consider building a whole new one. And maybe by then, you guys, you'll get your smooth Matterhorn bobsleds ride.
But I wonder if it's even worth it at that point to rebuild the Matterhorn from scratch to make it more smooth if it, when the time comes for them to put it out of its misery. I don't really think it'd be worth it for them to rebuild it completely.
Why?
I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like something Disney would do, in my opinion. I could be wrong. But anyways.
You mean like when they redid Star Tours?
I mean, that's not comparable to like demolishing an entire 140-foot mountain and then rebuilding that mountain again.
True.
I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to wait another 40 to 140 years to see what Disney ends up doing. Hopefully I'll live.
You mean 40 to 80?
40 to 80. Yeah. Hopefully I'll live long enough to see the future of the Matterhorn, whether it gets demolished and rebuilt or whether it just crumbles apart slowly and sinks into the lagoon. But anyways, I think we are unfortunately out of time for today's episode. Yeah, I'm very hungry, so my family's waiting for me to finish this so we can go eat. But anyways,
and I have to make gelato.
Oh, yeah, Alex was telling me before the show started that he was making gelato for tomorrow. So I've never had gelato. At least I don't think so. I might have had it in the past, but I've been thinking, I want to know, this is just one last, spitball idea that I have for you guys. I've been thinking of trying to like theme my closet to not look as bland and gross, and I've been thinking of like trying to theme it either like Hawaiian themed because of the shirt that I wear on the show, or if I can theme it like Matterhorn themed. Do you guys know what I mean? So it's more interesting to look at than just walls and pictures and the gross soundproofing foam. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. about doing that. Why is your closet empty of clothes? Because I kicked them out. They're evicted from my closet. They're all in my dresser drawer thing. I don't know what it's called. Dresser drawer? I don't know. I could theme it like the tiki room. I feel like I could do that. I just
actually,
have to,
yeah, that could be done.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple enough. It's probably easier than making like a bunch of paper mache like ice to like stick on the wall to make it look like the inside of the Matterhorn. I don't know. Just like this spitball idea that I feel like would be fun. So let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. And on that note, I do want to thank every single one of you for coming out to today's episode. Whether you be watching live, youtube.com/MatterhornMattStreams, or just in the comments or in the description of all the podcasts we publish, or whether you be listening on later, whether it be on iTunes, Spotify, or any other podcast app that you use. I'm sure we're not on all of them, but slowly ticking the boxes. Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on everything we talked about, whether it be good old Bobby, Bald Bob, Bald Chapek, disfiguring our lovely Main Street cinema, to your thoughts on all three of the attractions we talked about today. And yeah, be sure to wish them all a happy birthday in the comments down below. I know I certainly did. I went over to pay my respects to Harold in Guardians of the Galaxy last night. Not really, but yeah, thank you all to everybody. Thank you to everybody for coming out to this week's episode. And as always, we hope you have a great big... Oh, we're going to have... Nate sent in the spooky story 2 weeks ago. And we're going to... I guess not a spooky story, but a continuation of the Oink stuff that he's been sending. So we'll do that next week. Now, we hope you all have a great big beautiful tomorrow.